Velma. Hey, Arliss. What you doing? Just listening. To what? Everybody. Doing what? Just talking. I talk, you talk, he talks, she talks, we talk, they talk. Everybody here talks. Every day. Nobody listening. Conversation. We want you to watch our stations. We'll exceed your expectation every day. Conversation with Velma and Arliss.
Hello, and welcome to Everyday Conversations with Velma and Arliss. My name is Velma Jackson Wilkins, and my co-host is Arliss Anderson. Today we have Gary Wapnitsky and Ivan Farkas here with us to talk about why public speaking is so important and some of the strategies and benefits used to become a great speaker. Welcome, both of you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's get right into it. Toastmasters is a wonderful organization, one that all of us have been members of. But to just get a little deeper into it, what is the purpose of Toastmasters and public speaking? Why is that so important? Do either of you want to?
Well, for me, basically, it was not to be tongue-tied when people looked at me and expected me to speak. English is my fourth language, so by the time I came to this country, I was high school age, and predictably, the kids made a lot of fun of me, and then I lived in another country where I was very conscious of my accent. So by the time I got to middle age, I was like incredibly self-conscious every time I opened my mouth. Once you had a drink in me, I was fine. But when it came to work-related, more than one-on-one conversation, it was very uncomfortable for me. So that's what I wanted to work on when I joined Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm. It's something that you want to be more authoritative when you speak. It's very difficult to listen to people, and they're not very confident about what they're telling you. I always like to say, would you go to a doctor who comes in and says, you know, I think you have a disease, and I don't know, you might live for about another, 2 or 3 months. It doesn't come off very well. I put my clothes back on and run right out the door. But if I went to a doctor and said, sir, you have a disease, this is what we found, and you have X amount of time to live, you're going to listen. You're going to take that information and you're going to process it a lot differently than someone who's stumbling over their words. And that's something that, unfortunately, most people do, is stumble over their words. Mm-hmm. They know what they want to tell you, but they just don't know how to say it succinctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when we are looking at Toastmasters and the journey that all of us have taken through the Toastmasters, when you look at yourself from where you were when you started to where you are now, what do you see as your biggest accomplishment?
For me, it's knowing that I can give a speech in a set amount of time, or I can go into any situation, anywhere in the world, in front of any group, and be confident and be very comfortable standing in front of them and speaking. It wasn't something I was able to do very well 3 years ago, but now I'm able to do it. But you don't stop after 3 years. It's something that you're constantly learning and you're constantly growing, very much like going to the gym. You're always working. It's a muscle that we're building on a regular basis. And we know if we stop doing it, the muscle's not going to grow anymore, and it's going to be a lot harder to grow it.
So it's about practice, 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 right?
Yes.
And don't say no to the opportunities when they arise, because I know I used to always say no. Someone wanted me, they thought I could speak, but I wasn't comfortable doing it. And I would say no, 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 until one day in my job, I had to start giving presentations for the business I was in, and I freaked out. I freaked out because I could speak around the table, but when time came to stand up, again, that's why a lot of people do these classes called stand and speak, because that's when our nerves are the most, floating around. But I remember having to get up and give a speech, and I was so nervous. And this was back in 1996, because I was in Toastmasters in 96. And I came to a class, and I stayed there for a year, and I was able then to get up, not very well, but I was able to get up and do some sessions. And then what happens, I didn't do any of these sessions anymore. I didn't have to do a lot of it. It was about sitting around the table. So I became stale again. So I started to say no to people again until 2000. After I retired, I joined Toastmasters again, and I've just recently begun to say yes again. And I feel very comfortable now, but like you said, you must practice and practice and practice and say yes to some occasions. You know, and I think that's how you're going to get the confidence to get up there and give a speech.
And what it allows you to do ultimately is be able to express yourself. You know, have the confidence to say what's in your heart.
Yes.
Be able to bring that to the world, because all of us have a story, all of us have something, but if you don't feel confident about being able to just speak and share your story, then the
And you
world's
know
not
the
gonna
other thing
hear it.
too, as I was sitting here thinking about it, in my interviewing many people in my 30 years at City, it was, and these people may have not been the smartest people, but it was always those people who could come across to me as being sure of themselves, being confident, and not using all of this, even though I wasn't a Toastmasters, I knew that if you could come across very well, that means if I gave you an assignment, I could expect you to give it back to me somehow the way we expected it to turn out. Versus someone, and it's a bad thing because you prejudge people. You think that, okay, because they didn't communicate well, maybe I wouldn't hire them. And that's not the truth anymore. But I think coming across initially is important for everybody. And even if you say no, that's probably not the truth. If I were to come to you and I'm like, oh, you know, and I don't know, you would probably say, who taught her to speak?
Right.
Whereas if I come to you and I'm really smooth with my speech and the grammar is good, you're going to say, you know what, she's worth looking at. And I think that's really how we do look at people, whether we admit it or not. So public speaking is really important because it's that perception. It really is.
Absolutely. So when we're saying some ways to improve our public speaking, so we're talking about the actual speeches that we give when we're giving the speeches. Let's just quickly go through some of the ways that we do that. Prepare, rehearse, try to relax before going on. What are some of the things that we learn that we should be doing in Toastmasters? when giving a
Stage
speech?
time, stage time, stage time. As often as you can, get up in front of people, because by the time you get to do your speech, you should have that stage personality. You know that persona you want to present. So if you just learn your speech and then get up in front of an audience, that doesn't do it. You really have to create yourself as a public persona. And that takes a lot of work, but it's very rewarding.
Okay, all right. And what about those nerves?
Oh, what about those nerves? Well, you know, they may never go away, but that shouldn't be a problem. What you need to do is make friends with how your body reacts to a stressful situation. And believe me, being in front of an audience is stressful. Back in ancient times when we were evolutionary animals, when all those eyes looked at you, it meant you were lunch. And so it still brings that fear. However, if you notice what happens to you when you are in that situation and you just calmly accept it and get used to it, then you know when your body is revving up to be at its best. So I still get nervous before I get up to speak, but I know it's because I want to be at my best. And if ever I lost it, I would say, finished, I'm not doing this anymore because I'm just not interested.
Ivan, thank you. I could hear this all day, but we have to take a quick break.
All right.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. And now we want to share a little bit of Toastmasters in action. We want to show a short video clip of Arliss Anderson giving a speech at a Toastmasters conference in 2013. Let's take a look.
I'm going to ask you to participate with me. Because big, bold, audacious dreams, they live right here in our belly. Right here in our belly. And sometimes you gotta make some movement happen right here. So I'm gonna ask you to make some movement happen. If you can stand up with me. Because what we're going to experience is the most powerful, the absolute most powerful help. And that is group energy. So we're gonna have a little group energy right now. We're going to plant our feet right on the solid ground. Be real solid because you don't want to fall over when you do this, okay? It's going to be really solid. And I want you to just tap your belly like this a little bit. That's the gut. We're getting gut energy in here. So I want you to give me a little gut energy by going, ah! Let me hear it again. Yeah, do you feel the energy? Every time I do this, I want to hear you say it. Hear it again. Yes. Breaking rocks out here on the chain gang. Breaking rocks and serving my time. Breaking rocks out here on the chain gang. Wanna make my dreams come alive. Hold it steady right there while I hit it. Well, I reckon that ought to get it been working and working. But we still got so terribly far to go. You feel that? You feel that? Thank you. That's what group energy does for us. Group energy moves us. You feel it in the rooms.
And now we want to talk a little bit about what we saw. Okay? What did that you gave that presentation, so let's talk about what we saw and what worked well.
Well, first, let me just give you a little bit of the atmosphere. This is a dinner where you have people sitting down with their food, and you have to get them going, okay, and get them interested. So that's one thing. This is like the middle of the speech. So what did you observe happening, and considering as Toastmasters,
Yes.
what it is, our objective is, what are some of the things that you saw happening in that video?
One of the nice things that you did was you asked the audience to be inclusive of your presentation. You made them take a little bit of a break from their dinner, because we heard some of the din from the knives and the forks and the plates and such. And you asked them to stand. Once you get them into it, you now can really control that room. They're now in your environment, and you can do whatever you want with them. They're really under your spell at that point. And that's really nice to see that they want to participate, because what you had was something that they wanted to listen to.
Very good, very important with Toastmasters,
Right.
right? And did you hear a few grunts though when I said stand up?
Right.
Actually, what I really appreciated, you were working on an aspect of the Toastmasters members' downfall is voice, vocal volume. People who are not used to producing a strong enough voice to be heard at the back of the room have this private conversation with the people in the front row, and if I'm sitting halfway down the room, I can't hear what they say. So every time I can grab hold of somebody, I said, work on your volume. Go, hoo, hoo. And you were doing exactly the same thing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is important. And those were the things. All of that is a result of having gone through Toastmasters and becoming a competent communicator.
Arliss, I look forward to seeing the entire thing. I know it's going to be incredible. And now we're going to move on. I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Ivan Farkas, who will give us an inspirational speech, 5 to 7 minutes, and it's titled Managing PSAs. Let's give him a clap. A Toastmasters clap.
Thank you, Velma. Yes, I'm a past PSAS, public speaking anxiety sufferer. I spent most of my life in fear of more than 3 people looking at me. And it wasn't until I got to Toastmasters that I came to master it. I tried before learning cabaret, taking acting lessons, but as soon as I was off stage, I was back to my shy little self. But I learned through that some things that when I became a Toastmaster, I could use. It also came about by me working on my midriff when I turned 60 and I had a personal trainer. And it wasn't just training for one thing. It was cardio, endurance, and muscle building. And the biggest lesson was, you don't do it, you lose it. But when I started working on my anxiety, I took lessons from my personal trainer and my acting teacher and my coach for cabaret, and I came up with 3 points exactly like the cardio and the other exercises. And it's a 3-pronged approach using the physicality, intelligence, and emotion. And the physicality came in from my cabaret teacher's teaching that says when you're scared or you're experiencing stage fright, don't just say, I'm so nervous. Figure out what your body is doing. Specific. I'm sweating. My hands are shaking. I'm ready to faint. I have an out-of-body experience. And say, hello, shaking hands. Hello, sweaty brow. And make friends with it. And you know what? The sheer silliness of it already makes it work. When I get up to speak and I still feel those butterflies in the stomach, I say, hello, butterflies, please fly in formation. And by the time I get up top to the front of the room, I'm ready to go. And the intelligence comes in when you try to figure out what you need to do to overcome whatever obstacles you have. And each person has different areas. For starters, at Toastmasters, the CC manual, the Competent Communicator Manual, is a collection of 90 years of wisdom, and people just leaf through it without reading it. They give you an explanation how to use your body, how to use your voice, how to structure a speech, how to use your research, how to convince with power, and people just run through it. So that's not the right way of doing it. And also, I figured out for me, I was clumsy with my body, so I went to take some ballroom dancing lessons. At Learning Annex. It was very cheap, and I did it. I wasn't very good at it, but by the time I came through, I actually felt that when I get up in front of an audience, I can be graceful and embrace them. And then I continued with my acting classes and my singing because my voice was very weak. So I took vocal lessons, and then I used to go down to the park or to the beach and go, hoo, hoo, ah! And I learned to actually not get scared from the power of my own voice. And the third part is the emotional. When you get up in front of an audience, you have to figure out what is your emotion and what is the emotion you want to create in the audience's heart. They don't care, and they shouldn't, that you are scared. It's the first time you're doing it. So if somebody gets up there and says, I'm sorry, but this is the first time I'm doing it, you give away your power. Just like Gary said, that if you're lying on a table for open heart surgery and the surgeon comes in and says, I'm so nervous, this is the first time that I'm doing it, please forgive any mistakes. It won't work. And you have to be, in New York, it's extraordinary. You have to be cognizant that you have a whole variety of cultures and people may not get what you're saying. So your job is to make the audience feel intelligent and not taking anything for granted. I did it the other day. I did a speech on rhetoric, and I said reconnoitering rhetoric, and I was so clever using alliteration. And I found out of 12 people, 10 didn't even know the word, and they were American born. So I should have actually described it. So the 3 points are work on your nerves by acknowledging that it happens to you. It may not ever go away. Make it your friend. Number two, use your intelligence to figure out what you need to train, because the more you know, in general, the better you'll be, in particular when you're giving a specific speech. And number three, when you get up in front of an audience, make sure that you know it's not about you, it's about them. And do everything to make them feel good. So even if they don't remember your speech, they remember how good and happy you made them feel. And that's all the secret. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thanks for that great speech, Ivan. And now we are going to ask Gary to come up and give you some constructive feedback on your speech. As we know in Toastmasters, every speech requires some good and some bad. So Gary is going to come up now to give you feedback.
All right. And we always applaud everybody.
And we always applaud every time someone steps to the podium or steps to the front.
What I like to do when I give an evaluation is do it as the sandwich method. You start off with what you like about the speech, something that can be improved upon in the future, and we always end our evaluations on a positive note. We never want anyone to walk away feeling bad. Ivan gets up here with a great presence, and he makes you want to listen to him from the very beginning. Ivan told us he was going to talk about 3 different points, and then followed up by talking about each of those 3 points, which is really important. If you're going to give a set amount of what you're going to talk about that. If you give 5 and you only get to 3, we're left sometimes wanting more, and sometimes we're left not wanting to listen more. Ivan did very well on laying out what all those 3 points were. Where I feel Ivan can improve in the future, when you were using your body, I noticed your elbows tended to be at an angle, at a harsh angle. I've seen you speak, and you're much grander. You use your arms, you use your body, you use your voice in a much grander way. So it's something that I'd like to see. You definitely have the space to use. So make those gestures even grander than you already have done. And of course, to end it on that positive note, you brought us back to what those 3 points were. You reiterated what your speech was about and gave us a takeaway for us to remember. If you don't have a takeaway, we're really not that interested, because then we have to reflect back to what the beginning of the speech was. And most of the time, we don't pay attention to every little bit of the speech. So it's important. Have a great opening, have a substantial but listenable body, and then a phenomenal ending that we definitely want to hear you speak more in the future. So thank you, Ivan, for, once again, an amazing speech.
Great. And now I just want to thank all 3 of you. Arlis's nice video from her conference, Ivan, your phenomenal speech, and Gary, your superb evaluation. You gave some great points, and I know Ivan's going to take those and use them in his next speech. What advice would you give those, just a last thing, to improve their speech? Give me one thing. I know you can't give me one, but give me one point that you would give someone to improve their speech.
The most important thing is to listen to feedback, how people hear you. Don't take it personally. Just, this is how they heard you, and your job is to make the maximum number of people get your point. So evaluations, any other feedback, just say thank you very much, I appreciate it, and then think about how you can incorporate in your following speeches.
What about you, Gary?
And I would say, speak about what you know. Most of the time, people say, what am I going to talk about? Talk about what you know. Because if you were the audience listening to that speech and you were bored, then that's definitely not the speech that you should be giving. Don't go out there and talk about astrophysics if you don't know anything about astrophysics. Find something that you enjoy. Find something that you observe. Being in New York City, we have the subway where it's entertainment or something that we can relate to, and expand upon what you've seen and what you hear around you. Those are the most important things. Once you enjoy it, then your audience is definitely going to enjoy that.
And I just add, whenever you can show it instead of just say it, do that. As descriptive as you can be, putting a picture in someone's mind always makes it so much more interesting. Okay.
I agree with Gary. I agree with everything. Is listening and showing, but also know your topic, know your subject. Don't try to speak about something you don't know, because whatever you're passionate about, it's going to come across, and you're going to be able to really get out there and deliver with impact, and people are going to know that you are passionate about that topic. So that is always what I choose, is something that I know very well and something that resonates with my heart. So that's what I'd like to do. Now, if people want to find out more about Toastmasters, where can they go to find out more about Toastmasters?
Toastmasters.org. You can find every possible bit of information about Toastmasters, how to become a member, what types of speeches there are out there, what the advanced manuals are like, words of the day, anything to improve. It encompasses everything, and if you can't find it, they have a chat on there where you could talk to somebody, or you can call Toastmasters International and have all your questions answered.
Okay, so you can go to toastmasters.org.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It was just such a wonderful
It was
conversation.
fun. Thank you.
It was.
It was fun.
A lot of fun,
Thank
and that's what
you.
it should be, is fun.
That's what it should be. So hopefully in the future, I think we need to talk about this some more. But today, welcome. I'm glad that you came and to Everyday Conversations with Velma and Arliss. We are going to conclude our show now. And I just want to say, going forward, be bold, be brave, and remember, you were born to be
Magnificent.